Welcome to Team Engineering Challenge. In this short video, you're going to learn about the various levels for supplies relating to a district, regional, state, or national level event. My name is Jesse Domer, and I am the National Technical Chair for TEC. At the table to my left today, we are going to be talking about a district or regional level event. For this type of an event where you've maybe got 15 to 30 schools competing and 20 to 30 teams in the contest, these level events we typically offer for their supplies to be given to them when they show up at the event. So teams are given a packet of materials to start their contest, whether it's building a boat or an airplane or a trolley car, and the supplies that each team has are identical from table to table. This doesn't take much more time for the team to come up with their event, and it is equal or uniform then for the level of competition for each team. As you can see at this table, we have balloons, we have paper clips, clothespins, pink construction foam, CDs, pine wood sticks, and paper, as well as the team name ready to go for when they show up. The only additional piece that team would need to begin is going to be their packet of materials, which describes the contest guidelines as well as what the contest is they are doing for that time period. This level of contest, districts or regionals, works very well for small events. However, if you're anything like the Wisconsin SkillsUSA State Conference, where we have 110 middle school and high school teams competing, this style of supplies doesn't work well for that large quantity. So to my right, we are going to be talking about today how you can create a SkillsUSA TEC supply store. So I'm going to walk us through the supply store, and this is very similar to what we've been doing at the Wisconsin State Conference for 5 or 6 years now, as well as how we're running the national contest for supplies for those teams competing there too. When the team shows up on their table, instead of seeing a table of supplies, they're going to have some order forms. They're going to have some SkillsUSA money, $60 worth of fake money for them to use, as well as their contest packet. When the contest begins and they're able to start working, they're going to be sending one designated member of their team up to the supply store line, at which time you might have 4 or 5 or 6 volunteers at your state level event, depending on how big it is, helping to disperse the supplies appropriately. We do not allow the students to actually fill their bags and grab their supplies. We have a volunteer that fills it for them, but the student brings up their order form and their money, and they're going to hand it off to their volunteer. So for now, I'm the volunteer, and I just grabbed this order form from a student. Every team that comes up gets a free bag. They don't have to pay for it. So if they come up and just buy one rubber band, they get a free bag every single time. The bag is supplies. They're being given it to them by the technical committee. So we would go through their order form and fulfill. If they wanted 2 rubber bands, we're going to reach in, let them kind of pick out what sizes they want, but we're going to put 2 rubber bands in the bag. If they want 1 Q-tip, we're going to put 1 Q-tip in the bag, and we're going to work our way all the way down the store. For the rest of this portion, I just want to describe what the store looks like. For those of you that are technical chairs or state directors looking at how to get into this contest, having an idea of how to create these supplies is probably a good idea. Most of these supplies you see are dollar store. You know, me and my technical committee are going to places like Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's, or the dollar store, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, and we're picking up a lot of supplies as cheap as we can, if not many of these supplies for free as we scavenge around. Some of these supplies like Q-tips, we can buy a box of Q-tips for $1, and they're going to last us a couple of years. Not a lot of people tend to use Q-tips, but they're always available. Various sizes of rubber bands here are always available. Again, we let the teams decide typically which type of rubber band they want. We give them some options. We have toothpicks made of wood, so it gives them, you know, somewhat of a sturdy material. We have different size paper clips. Over here happens to be the smaller paper clips. Again, $1 gets you 250 paper clips. We have more than enough to do whatever it is we want to do for a contest. We have zip ties, sometimes come in handy for putting things together. We started doing this a couple years ago. We're giving them a strip of sandpaper. We buy a 10-pack of sandpaper at Ace Hardware. We cut it up into little pieces, and this stuff lasts forever. So we have all kinds of little strips of sandpaper. Paper plates at the grocery store. We can get, lots of those for pretty cheap. Those are available for them to cut up or use. We have plastic cups. I think these are 8-ounce cups. We have foam wheels. These we actually cut out on our laser engraver. So we bought a large 2-foot by 3-foot sheet of foam core at Walmart or wherever, and we put it on the laser and we cut them out, and as you cut them, it actually melts away the foam a little bit, so they can be used for wheels or pulleys or spacers or whatever it is the team members choose to use them for. But we have lots of those, and they're fairly cheap. One sheet of foam core gets you a couple hundred of these, so it goes quite a ways. Dollar store, spoons. They always find a reason to use a spoon or two. Paper clips, you can get these in packs of like 50 as well at the dollar store. Not paper clips, sorry, clothespins. Balloons, different colors, different shapes. Some of them are even donated with logos on them. They can either use them as a balloon, like for a cushion, or we can stretch them. There's all kinds of reasons students will use balloons in the various level designs. One of those free items we have here are some lids, we call them. We can get a hold of a whole bunch of cardboard tubes from a local company, and in those tubes are 2 lids. So we keep popping the lids off. We've got a couple hundred of these collected over the years, and we allow them for teams to use them if we want. And later you'll see those tubes used again, the actual cardboard. Dollar store for straws, plenty of those. They get used pretty often. We went to a craft store and purchased some pipe cleaners. Pipe cleaners comes in all kinds of different colors. The teams really like the colorful ones. They get to pick which color they want. Popsicle sticks online. A couple items will go online to purchase. We can buy in bulk. This is one of those. You can get a box of 1,000 of these for not that much. And these, teams like these because they're rigid. Again, one of those items that brings rigidity to what it is, whatever they're building, whatever the year's theme happens to be. Another free item, going to your local IT company. We happen to have an in with a company in Madison, Wisconsin. And here we're able to get old computer disks donated. We can get hundreds of these things whenever we ask. They happen to be Dell boot up disks. They're just throwing them out. We're able to collect them. So they get the whole sleeve and the CD as an item they can purchase. As I'm going through, I'm just going right down the line of our order slip. So when you download and look at our order slip, if you're interested to see how we've set up our store, from top to bottom it actually follows the order that I'm going. So when the person, your volunteer, is going through and picking the items and putting them in the bag, they're actually following this right down the line. They're not bouncing back and forth. It's the same order. So it makes it really easy for that process. Paper. This is actually cardstock. We have different colored cardstock paper here. And the paper is on here for 2 reasons. One, it's a building supply. If teams want to use this to build up a shelf or whatever it is that they're trying to do within their design, they can. But also, if the teams are presenting a poster or a flyer, or they've got written notes that they're going to script for their presentation to the judges when they give that portion of the contest, they have to use our supplies. They can't have their own loose leaf paper. So we supply paper for them to purchase for those purposes as well. And that's on the order sheet. As I mentioned earlier, we have multiple sizes of paper clips. So this is the large size. And we keep them separated from the small paper clips, not only so we don't get them mixed up when they're just sitting there, but we also know which ones we're giving the team. If they ask for one or the other, they're far enough apart we don't give the wrong size paper clip by accident. This is a Lowe's or Home Depot type pink construction foam. We actually purchased this. I think it came in a 3-foot by like 5-foot piece folded up like an accordion for house siding or something. We took it to the table saw and cut it into larger sheets. And this is actually the scrap from the larger sheets. You'll see those later. But these work nice. Again, a building type of material. It floats, or it's lightweight, or you can put holes in it. A number of different reasons teams might want to use this smaller pink foam. Wood dowels, we buy them in 4-foot pieces and cut them down to 12 inches so we can get 4 dowels out of a stick, and you got a whole bunch of them here. This size dowel does fit inside of our straws. We did that on purpose. A couple things we purchase and use on those types of scenarios, trying to figure out how kids might use them for their design. But that is usually something we try to do, is give them an axle and a bushing type scenario. If they needed to use that, we allow that. We talked about those plastic lids going into tubes. This happens to be the cardboard tubes. These came in like 3 to 4 foot strips when we purchased them. We take them to the bandsaw and cut them up, and we offer up the tubes for building materials. Now we do happen to have usually hacksaws and hot glue guns and all kinds of other stuff for teams to use around the competition room. So, you know, teams might decide to cut this in half if they wanted to, but it's good construction cardboard. String and tape and ribbon and all those types of things typically are somewhere in the middle of our contest area. So we've got some yarn, some kite string, some normal string. I might have some masking tape here. I might have black and red wires here as well. But one of the things I would encourage if you're running this contest is to tape down on the table a tape measure or a couple of rulers. So if you're giving everybody 3 feet of yarn, you can actually lay this thing out, put it on your ruler and clip it right at 3 feet or whatever it is you're using. But trying to find a way to keep up with the store, because if you've got 40 teams in line trying to get their supplies and you only have 4 or 6 workers that are running one kid through a time, you need to find a way to keep up. So that is one way to assist with that process, or pre-cutting them to 3 foot pieces and laying them on the table works very well too. Another one of those free items that we scavenge around are some plastic end cap tubes. We call them plastic tubes, but you know, students come up with different ways to use these. At times they're available. Popsicle sticks, again, just like the smaller popsicle sticks, these are some big ones. We do keep them separate again so that we don't confuse which size popsicle stick the team wants. Here's one of those items we can get fairly cheap. We go buy a couple of 2x4s, and if you've ever taught construction class, you know how tedious this can be, and sometimes it's a safety hazard, so you know, make sure you're using those push sticks and safety glasses. But we're ripping down 2x4s on the table saw and on the band saws and creating just small sticks of pine lumber for the teams to use. Students like these because, again, that rigid material they can use. They can cut it up, they can use it as frames or towers or whatever they're trying to do. These happen to be 1/8 inch thick, 1/4 inch wide by about 15 inches long. And we've got a whole pile of them in here for students to purchase. One of those items at the dollar store that every team ends up buying pretty much on the order list that they've got available to them is a roll of tape. We can get these in 2 packs for $1 at the Dollar General or Dollar Store, wherever it is you're shopping. And we just throw them in the bin, and pretty much every team is buying these. These usually cost a little bit more when it comes to the cost of stuff, but it comes in very handy. Students can use as much tape as they want in their project available to them. That pink foam we were talking about, the smaller squares, this is actually what we were originally cutting in size, 8.5 by 11 pieces, and it left enough scrap for us to give those smaller squares as well. But this stuff floats, it's lightweight, it's easy to use, it cuts nicely. Another rigid item is press board. We're getting this in 2 foot by 3 foot sheets donated locally, and we just ripped it up into a whole bunch of little pieces, and we're giving them for a small price too. This does float, by the way, too, without sucking up a lot of water, which is kind of surprising, but that is a material. Cardboard. We happen to have a fairly nice resource for cardboard when we're reaching out to local companies and stuff, but we can cut this into small pieces and they can purchase pieces of cardboard. I typically find in most of the years we've run this contest that we need to give teams some sort of larger rigid material, whether the project is large or not. They tend to find good use for these types of things within their teams. Coming down towards the end, again, this is just some of the supplies that we've used over the years for Team Engineering Challenge, but this set of supplies is getting a little bit more specific now. This happens to be a 3D printed water propeller, and this happens to be just an online purchased quadcopter propeller. And one year we did for the Wisconsin State event was a water boat down a trough of river per se So the teams had electrical and batteries, and they had to power their boat upstream. We've actually provided that packet for other states to look at in the past years. But in that year, we happened to 3D print some propellers. You drill a hole in the end, and it mounts right to the motor. They could actually submerge the motor and electronics right in the water. It didn't hurt it. We actually tested. It ran for 45 minutes on and off and kept running, so we figured we were good. But that was a supply that they could choose whether it was water or air power. We gave them some specific supplies. So though cardboard and foam and yarn might be generic supplies that you have on the table every year for the contestants, there's always going to be some specific supplies that you need to think of to accomplish the goal of that year's theme, whether it's a airplane or a boat or a car or a, whatever you're trying to build. You probably need to come up with some specific items. When the teams are testing their devices throughout the day for competition, you typically have to, or we've always provided them the ability to test on the actual testing device that we're going to use for scoring them at the end of the event. Now we might have other test devices set up around the room. So for instance, if we're building boats, I might have some buckets of water around the room they can go to as much as they want just to see if it floats or works or moves or whatever. But if they want to come to the actual river that we have with a pump and water flow and all that stuff, each team is usually given 1 or 2 test passes free right away. They can go to that test device and test a couple times officially. But let's say they maybe need another test time. So usually on their order form they have the ability to purchase more test passes. So those would be on your supply store as well potentially if you're allowing that. And usually they're pretty expensive. It's not something they can just go purchase a whole bunch of them. This thing is usually, if most items on the table are $1 or $2 and maybe the tape is $5, this test pass is $10. This is something that they've definitely got to budget their $60 for if they want more items. We talked about the money a little bit. And in the supply store, if you're doing a store option versus just all their supplies are on the table, you need to come up with a way for them to purchase that stuff. It gives them another problem-solving technique to go through for the contest. So we've actually purchased some sheets of just plexi or plastic off of inventables.com. They don't give us any support, although it'd be awesome with this plug if they did. But we have just different colors, yellow, blue, and green for our money. We created on our laser engraver a vector and a grave roster type file, and we cut out a whole bunch of just different $1, $5, and $10 coins. And then each team gets, when they show up right away on their table, $60 worth of coins. Plus we have the extra coins available for the cashier to make change and things like that. It's pretty cheap to come up with the money. And this money lasts from year to year, so that's kind of nice that you can use it over and over again if you do the plastic. Our first year doing the store, we actually used paper money. We tried doing like the Monopoly game where you got all these 1s and 5s and 10s out of little pieces of paper. It was very cheap. Ran them on the photocopier, different colors, cut them up. Worked out very well, but we struggled keeping up because now we're trying to futz with all of this paper money and get it separated and used, and it all stuck together and got wet, and it was just a mess. So the next year and ever since, we've gone to these plastic coins, and it's sped up the process way better. It looks nicer and easier to use. Another one of those supply items that we don't necessarily sell, every team gets these. In fact, we've got a couple of glue stations, I'll call it, set up around the contest area, whether it's a district event with only 20 teams or the state level event with 100 and some teams. We got about 12 glue guns set up around the room, and we go online and purchase this hot glue for, I don't know, probably $100, and we get like 10,000 sticks of glue. So we've got more than enough glue to make it. They can use as much hot glue as they wanted to. If they wanted to build their whole device and glue the thing up on hot glue, theoretically they could. Now they might get some flack from the rest of the teams trying to get to that hot glue gun because they are sharing these glue stations around the room. But one of the supplies we give them, unlimited resource basically, is hot glue, and that comes in really handy too. Kind of like the tape, where every team buys tape, every team has access to the hot glue. So again, this is Team Engineering Challenge for SkillsUSA. Our hope is more states are getting involved in this contest, especially at that middle school level. And we've shown you a couple of options to help you get that contest started, whether it's a district or regional level small event in your state or counties, offering up the table where when they show up, you've got all the supplies there for them. Or maybe you're trying to mimic that national level event and you've got the store set up like you see here as well. As you plan your event, so if I'm not talking to students or advisors and now maybe we're directed towards that state director, as you can probably tell, all of these supplies take up a lot of space. And as the National and Wisconsin technical chair for Team Engineering Challenge, in Wisconsin I have to plan for 110 teams. So you know, when we build the pine sticks, I make hundreds of these sticks and then I store them. Or we buy hundreds of tape or whatever it is and I have to store those items. So behind me happens to be a couple of wire carts. You can pick these up for a little over $200. They're on wheels, so they move around really nicely. As a classroom teacher, they're always in my room, kind of tucked in a corner. But paper boxes, store stuff, and you can just kind of see all this supply stuff eventually goes onto the table for what we're doing. And it comes in really handy then because we can roll this into state or roll this at nationals or pick and choose what we need for a regional or a district level event. But the materials are here for those types of supplies. I don't know what you're telling me.
I don't need this anymore.
Oh. Excellent. Sorry for the interruption. My co-chair for Team Engineering Challenge is actually behind the video camera because he thinks I do better in front of the camera. But he reminded me one of the things that we do for the store as well that I forgot to mention. If a team member comes up and purchases all their supplies, so they've purchased this cardboard tube, they had a great idea for what they were going to use it for, whatever that happens to be, they get back to their table, they're building stuff up with their team of 3, and they start looking at this going, man, I think we're going to change what we're going to do. We no longer need this cardboard tube or pine stick or whatever it happens to be. Maybe they got 15 items they bought that they don't need anymore. We do purchase items back if they're still in original condition. So if they haven't cut this, taped on this, painted this, it's still just like they bought it, they can bring it back to the start of the line. They don't need an order slip. They can just give this back and they can say, I'd like to sell this back. And we purchase anything on the table back for half price. So yeah, it's not full price, but we can help them out a little bit. So if this was $2, they can bring it back up. We're going to take their tube back. We're going to give them $1 coin back and off they go again with what they're doing. And maybe that $1 coin back allows them now to have enough money to purchase a piece of cardboard, which is what they want now. So that buyback system comes in very handy. The Team Engineering Challenge is an amazing event for entry-level students to get excited about what SkillsUSA has to offer. It actually ties to so many careers through that problem solving, through hands-on, through designing, through their presentation and interview skills that they have. It's a great way to get students involved in those career options that maybe don't know how to weld yet or how to do drafting or photography or culinary arts. It's a great entry-level point, especially for those middle school students. So we really do hope that you enjoy this Team Engineering Challenge as much as we do, and we hope that this video on supplies helps the local states and maybe some teams get excited and start up this event at your local level. Thank you very much.